Are the iPhone 17 leaks too good to be true? Let's pump the brakes. If you've seen headlines promising an old display for $599, a flagship A19 chip, MagSafe, a 48MP camera, an 18MP center stage selfie upgrade, dynamic island, and 8 million units shipping out of the gate. Remember this, viral leaks are built for clicks, not accountability. Today, we're doing a reality check on the iPhone 17e, its rumored specs, release date, design, price, and who it's really for so you don't get played by speculation. Let's start with the name itself, iPhone 17e. Apple has used Say Mini, Plus, Pro, and Pro Max. E isn't a real Apple naming pattern, and Apple doesn't gamble with branding at the mass market level. If this device exists at all, it's more likely to be a successor to the iPhone Say, not a brand new E line. That matters because an Say class phone follows a different rulebook. Keep the core experience great, cut costs quietly, and never cannibalize the flagship. Now, those confirmed display rumors. You'll hear that Bo will supply most of the OLED panels, with Samsung Display and LG Display filling the rest. Sounds authoritative, but there are big caveats. Apple routinely multi-sources panels and reallocates orders based on yield, quality, and schedule. If Bo hits yield turbulence, as has happened before, the mix shifts. Also, not all O is equal. A cost-focused model will almost certainly use LTPS 60 Hz or, at best, 90 Hz, not LTPO 120 Hz. Expect solid contrast and brightness for the price, but don't expect pro-level smoothness or the highest peak HDR. Majority Bo OLED doesn't automatically mean flagship display at a budget price. It means Apple wants cost control and leverage during negotiations. What about that shipment projection? 8 million units in the first half of 2026? That number gets thrown around to signal Apple's confidence, but context matters. Apple often pads early production to cover regional launches, carrier promos, and channel fill. It's a supply chain chess move, not a guarantee of demand. If a spring launch is real, Apple could be front-loading inventory to avoid the back-to-school crush and the fall flagship window. Don't confuse a procurement plan with a sold-through forecast. The i19 chip rumor is the flashiest headline and the least probable. Apple fiercely protects product segmentation, giving a mid-range iPhone the same next-gen processor as the iPhone 17. Pro family will blur the lineup and undercut the Pro value story. Historically, entry iPhones ship with the current base chip or last year's silicon because it's more than enough. If you're expecting an A19 inside a $599 iPhone 17e, prepare to be disappointed. A smarter bet is an A8 or a 17 class chip, optimized for efficiency, supported for years, and cheaper to build at scale. And yes, that still means excellent performance, long iOS support, and strong battery life. It just doesn't win spec sheet arguments on YouTube thumbnails, and that's fine. Let's talk MagSafe. Could Apple finally add MagSafe to a lower-cost iPhone? Sure, it's plausible Apple wants you in the accessory ecosystem. But magnets, coils, shielding, and alignment. Components aren't free. If aggressive cost targets are in play, Apple may keep MagSafe for higher margin models and give the eSafe fast wired charging plus basic key. If MagSafe does arrive, expect Apple to save elsewhere materials, refresh rate, ultra-wide, camera quality, or storage tiers. Nothing's free on a bill of materials. Design drama, notch, or dynamic island. Dynamic island is a brand anchor across the modern lineup, but making it universal isn't just a cosmetic decision. It requires different display cutouts, sensor packaging, and panel costs. On a budget-tilted model, Apple could keep the notch to save money and keep the lineup visually stratified. If the dynamic island does arrive on a 17e, expect trade-offs elsewhere. And no, eliminating the notch doesn't suddenly make it a flagship. It just makes it look more current. Cameras next. A 48MP main camera on an affordable iPhone is believable. Apple already shipped a 48MP sensor on mainstream models. And scaling. That tech down the line is logical. But the rumored 18MP center stage selfie raises eyebrows. Center stage relies on an ultra-wide lens and crop. It's been an iPad feature where the use case landscape video calls is strong. On iPhone, Apple prioritizes natural perspective for selfies and FaceTime. If a new front camera arrives, expect modest resolution bumps and better processing, not a wholesale feature transplant just for marketing. And don't expect variable aperture or periscope zoom. Those are thick, expensive, and reserved for. Pro differentiation. Battery life and efficiency always sound like easy wins, but beware the leak bingo card. Real-world longevity comes from the whole stack chip process. Display driver power, I/O power gating, background task scheduling, not a single spec. A right-sized battery plus a mature A-series chip will beat many Android phones with. Bigger cells, but that's been true for years. Claims of dramatic gains without panel and SOS context are just that, claims. Price and release date are where rumors love to overpromise. A spring 2026 launch? Possible, because Apple historically uses spring for say-class updates. But $599 with old, a near-current chip, MagSafe, upgraded cameras, and 6 or 7 years of iOS support? That's a razor-thin play when you factor in component inflation, modem costs, regional taxes, and the accessory attach rate Apple expects. Apple can hit $599, but not with every wish list feature stacked into one device. Something will give. Now, let's dismantle the Android killer narrative. Mid-range Android phones sell flagship killer on paper. 120Hz, 67W charging, 200MP marketing sensors. Apple doesn't compete on that sheet. It competes on stability, longevity, silicon efficiency, camera pipeline consistency, ecosystem lock-in, resale value, and 5+ years of updates. If an iPhone 17e arrives, it won't try to crush Android with flashy specs. It'll offer the Apple experience at a lower entry price fast where it matters, boring where it saves money. That's not a dunk. It's discipline. Component reuse? That's not a secret weapon. It's Apple's standard operating procedure. Reusing proven chassis designs, sensors, haptics, modems, and display cutouts increases reliability and cuts risk. Expect a familiar frame, mature cameras with smarter processing, the same haptic engine you already like, and a modem tuned for battery life over synthetic speed tests. That's how budget iPhones feel stable out of the box. Less novelty, more refinement. So what's actually realistic for an iPhone 17e? If it exists at all? A sturdy, familiar design. Old at 60Hz or maybe 90Hz. A capable main camera with better low light and skin. Tones via improved ISP and smart HDR. A selfie camera that's slightly sharper, not radically different. A last-gen A-series chip that's still faster than most Android mid-range silicon. Paired with excellent standby and thermal behavior. 128GB base storage, because 64GB in 2026 would be unacceptable. Face ID, 5G with sensible bands, Wi-Fi. 6E or 7 if costs allow, and a battery tuned to last a day and then some. Maybe MagSafe if Apple finds room in the margins. And at least 5 years of iOS updates, which quietly destroys the value argument for many Android phones. What you should not expect: the very latest chip from the Pro models, 120Hz LTPO periscope zoom, a brand new industrial design exclusively for a budget tier or a spec list that embarrasses the flagships. Apple doesn't sabotage its top phones to win a mid-range headline. It defends the premium story and invites more people into the ecosystem with a carefully balanced package.